Well, it turns out Humza Yousaf's in a bit of a pickle now. Apparently, he just spent £250,000 of good Scottish money for what seems to be a private rescue operation for his family. I shall explain, but first I'll tell you I'm Grannyopter. Now, a few months ago, I actually tried reading from the newspaper, but unfortunately, the microphone I had at the time was not up to the job, and there was too much crackle coming from the paper, so I gave that up. But now I've got a much fancier microphone. I thought maybe I'll try it again. I'll put the actual item up there, though. But it's so much easier to read from a newspaper, really, than the screen so much of the time. OK, so Humza Yousaf, the First Minister of Scotland, is now involved in a row over £250,000 of Gaza cash, it says here. It says here he was accused of a conflict of interest after overriding officials to give $250,000 to a Gaza aid agency. Now, this isn't any old Gaza aid agency. Let me explain. The officials told him he could give some money to UNICEF, which is the United Nations Children's Fund. And there seems to be nothing wrong with that. But instead, he gave it to the UN RWA. Now, there are two main refugee relief agencies. Well, there are two refugee relief agencies run by the UN. And it's very weird. Most people don't actually know what's going on here. The first one is the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, which is UNHCR. And that deals with refugees all over the world. If there are Tibetans in India or, I don't know what, Tutsis in Africa somewhere displaced or, oh yeah, well, I suppose there'll be many from Venezuela who fetch up in neighbouring countries. They become the responsibility of the UNHCR, the High Commission for Refugees. However, in 1948, Arab countries insisted that there should be a special agency for Palestinian refugees. So UN resources are divided into what goes to the UNRWA, the one for the Palestinians, and the rest of the world. Do you think that's fair? Well, I don't. And in any case, the UNRWA, which is usually explained as the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, that is a pretend name. Actually, it is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees. That's the whole name. They missed the other bit off because they don't want people to know that that's a special fund getting special treatment for Palestinian refugees. And if you've been keeping an eye on the news, you will know that it has now been discovered that the UNRWA is working hand in glove with Hamas. And they're the ones who have been publishing the educational material that has told generations of Gazan and West Bank children that Jews are the very devil. Any Jew, anywhere in the world, and that they deserve to be killed. I mean, you wouldn't believe the sort of stuff they have in their books, like the maths books. My father had 3 orchards. The Israelis killed him and stole 2 of them. How many are left? You know, that sort of thing. I'm serious. I mean, worse than that, actually. It's just my imagination doesn't run to their sort of ideas. Anyway, instead of giving the, I think they said he should give about between 100 and 200,000 to UNICEF, remember, the Children's Fund, which is a very reasonable idea. I'll get into that in a minute. He instead made it 250,000 and he gave it directly to UNRWA. And it's very interesting because straight after he'd done that, his family, who had been trying to get out of Gaza, suddenly there were no problems and they got across the border into Egypt. Isn't that a strange coincidence? Now, as for giving money to Gaza, Scotland has enough problems of its own. There isn't a decent ferry from Scotland, the mainland of Scotland, to some of the islands. That money could have been used for that. There are people who are actually cut off because of the SNP's maladministration. But if you're going to have £250,000 going spare, and you're the government, you have to decide whether the people in your country deserve that money or somewhere else. Now, if ordinary Scots people want to run a charity drive and raise some money to send to look after Gazan children, that's wonderful. That's really good. But I don't see why the SNP should be making those decisions for the Scottish people, particularly as the Scottish economy is in such dire straits right now. And the officials told him, all right, well, you can sort of take off 200,000 or so from the Scottish people and give it to the Gaza Children's Fund, which, as I said, is, I mean, I'm sure the Scottish people might have had something to say about that had they been asked, but it's a reasonable thing. But he decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm the boss. This goes to UNRWA, which means most of it will go to refurbishing some Hamas general's swimming pool or a holiday in Qatar or something like that. We all know that now, and he knew that as well. To be fair, a spokesman for Mr. Yousaf said UNRWA had no role in the situation regarding the First Minister's extended family, and any suggestion of a conflict of interest in this matter would be completely untrue. Well, I'll leave you to make up your own minds about that. Okay. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Grannyopter design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.grannyopterix.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.